Welcome to Ask the Hiring Manager. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ask the Hiring Manager. Today, we have a very special guest and amazing lady with us. Her name is Donna Wilson. Donna is president of consulting firm Strategic Intersections, and she has served in executive leadership roles, including vice president of global diversity, equity, and inclusion, and head of DEI multicultural marketing for iconic Fortune 100 brands, including American Express and Johnson & Johnson. Throughout her extensive career in corporate America, Donna has hired hundreds of applicants and has introduced strategies increasing representation of women and people of color, retaining diverse talent, and building a more inclusive workplace. Donna is a highly sought after keynote and public speaker, a member and past co-chair of the Executive Leadership Council, and board member of the New York Women's Foundation. She has received numerous awards and recognition, such as the Economic Justice Award from the Welfare Law Center and the David Rockefeller Fellow Award. She was named Top 100 Minority Executives and Top 40 Under 40 in Crain's New York Business Magazine. And the Network Journal named Donna one of its 25 influential Black women in business. Most recently, Donna launched her book, Behind the Glass Doors, The Unwritten Rules for Success and Fulfillment. What a resume. I'm so happy to have you here, Donna.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. I am so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So I'm going to jump in and ask about a little bit about your career in the banking sector. So you started your career in banking. What inspired you to launch your career in banking?
Oh, this is a really, really funny story. I actually started my career in banking unbeknownst to me. And so what I ended up doing is that I always shied away from math courses and finance courses when I was in high school, and then I went on to college. I only did the bare basic, whatever the requirement was to graduate. So I was never someone that loved math and never someone that believed that I was ever going to spend any time in finance. That being said, one day after I got out of college, I had to go into a bank to actually have them help me balance my checkbook. That's
Wow.
what I needed help with. And so I sat down with a personal banker and they actually walked me through the steps, and they were really very, very helpful. And I had various conversations with them as I was figuring out how to balance my checkbook. And this individual said to me, "Have you ever thought about working for a bank?"
Hmm.
And I said, "No, I've never thought about working for a bank." And he gave me a recommendation for a job. And that's how my banking career started.
Wow, amazing. That's so crazy how you can just walk into a bank, get advice, and then you're like, you know what? I think I'm interested in this sector. So that's great. It's just proof that you never know how you're gonna go into a different area. So love that. Love that. And
Yeah.
then throughout your banking career, I believe you also served in a role as Northeast Regional President in Washington Mutual Bank. And then from there, you switched to American Express, where you served as VP of Global DEI. So, what inspired you to transition from community development to a business focus on global diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Leslie, I have always been someone that wanted to be in control of my own career. I was always someone that wanted to be in control of my own destiny. And I had been in banking now for more than 20 years, and I wanted to do something else. I just wanted to do something else. And so this was about the year 2000. There were a lot of conversations taking place regarding Y2K, the
Mm.
changing demographics of the world in which we're living in, the changing census. And so I was really interested in that. And I was also interested in this conversation about diversity. But the experience that I had had about diversity was that when I spoke with my HR colleagues in banking, they always looked at diversity from the standpoint of talent. And
Hmm.
I thought that as a business person, why not look at it from the standpoint of the business opportunity? I think that you would get more people engaged and interested in the conversation as opposed to feeling as though you're mandating that people hire certain talent. And so that's really why I was very interested in pivoting. And I also, the other thing was that the banking industry was shrinking. And
Hmm.
I wanted to have opportunities that I didn't just have to do in banking. And when I was looking at global diversity, there were lots of industries and companies that were looking for expertise in global diversity. And so it opened up my aperture and the opportunities with other companies and industries. And that's what I was interested in.
I love that. And I also appreciate and love that you bring up the point about DEI and its focus from a business aspect. I think a lot of people may think of it as, like you said, the talent, the social aspects, bringing a sense of belonging to underrepresented people. So the fact that you viewed it as well as from a business lens, I'm sure was definitely a value add and kind of a different aspect than normal.
Yes,
Love
yes,
that.
definitely, definitely.
What were your responsibilities as VP of Global Diversity, Equity, Inclusion while at American Express?
So it was really my job at American Express to interface across multiple businesses to create strategies to mitigate any diversity concerns that those businesses had. Keeping in mind that I am a business person, so I also look for those opportunities to offer business suggestions on how they can increase their market share. So I also, in addition to that, because I love the innovation space, looking at where they had gaps from a talent perspective,
Hmm.
I initiated and created leadership development programs for diverse talent and women because I could look around and see that there wasn't a lot of diversity. And so I wanted to create programs that would address those gaps, just like any other business opportunity.
Love it. And then speaking of programs that you develop, I read, I think from your LinkedIn, that you launched the African American Talent Investment Program as well as the led the development of the Women in the Pipeline program at American Express. What was the purpose of these specific programs?
You know, what I saw is that I saw that there were gaps. I saw that as the businesses that I was supporting, that there were gaps. There were women not at senior levels. There was a lack of diversity across multiple businesses. And I really thought, why is that the case? And I have always been someone that would ask questions. I always needed to understand why.
Hmm.
And at the time, we did not have women managing large P&Ls. And I thought that was interesting and that was curious for me. Were they like me in terms of the beginning of my career? Were they just people not interested in math? I had no idea. I had no idea. And I also didn't see people of color advancing into those leadership roles. And I wanted to understand why. What was the reason for that? And
Hmm.
so it wasn't enough for me to think maybe they just don't like math and they don't want to manage a P&L. And maybe they just don't want that promotion. So I thought that doesn't make any sense. So I began having conversations and I found exactly to the contrary. Women were very interested in P&L opportunities. People of color were very interested in promotional opportunities. So I wanted to create programs that were going to address just that. And both of these programs ended up being very, very successful and accomplished what we designed them to do.
Great, great. So I'm assuming as a result of those programs that you did see more women and people of color in leadership and
Absolutely.
kind of attain those.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
wonderful. That's
Thank you.
wonderful. And those programs sound great. So the answer to this next question could be that, but I'm curious, what are you most proud of that you achieved while at American Express?
Oh, when I was at American Express, what I'm most proud of is that I'm excited that I created those programs, absolutely. But I'm also excited that I was able to bring and breathe life into that business focus as well on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so some of the businesses I was able to work with and talk about market share and increasing market share. And I was able to create 3 brand new products for American Express.
Wonderful, wonderful. What type of roles did you hire for while at Amex, and what were you looking for in a qualified applicant?
You know, traditionally, these roles were subject matter experts for those particular businesses. But what's important to keep in mind is that when I was doing interviews, I was looking for really good transferable skills. So
Hmm.
you didn't have to be in the financial services industry. You didn't have to work at American Express, but I was looking for transferable skills. I was looking and listening for strong communication skills. I was listening for strong leadership skills and strong problem solving skills. Those were critical that I was looking for any applicant that I would give the nod for a hire for.
Yes, that's great. I'm glad you mentioned transferable skills because throughout several of my guests, like yourself, who are hiring managers, that have even maybe switched to a different company, and I've asked them, what were you looking for between companies? A lot of the times they'll mention as well the transferable skills. That's so important. Like you said, critical thinking, additional skills that can literally be transferred from one job or even one industry to another. So
And
great.
and 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 just to build on that,
Yes.
I was in banking, entrenched in banking, traditional banking, not credit card banking, traditional banking, branch banking. And then as I was looking for those opportunities, the world was my oyster. So I knew that my skills were transferable. It was just a matter of getting my skills, making sure my resume represented that, and getting in front of the right hiring managers and for the right companies. And so that's how I ended up at American Express.
Absolutely. Absolutely love it. Switching gears a bit, after Amex, speaking of transferring, skills and even companies, after Amex, you worked at Johnson and Johnson, and while at J&J, you developed a global DEI strategy for the consumer sector. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about that strategy and your goals and its implementation?
Yes. So I have to say, and I don't want to sound like a commercial, I love Johnson and Johnson. I love Johnson and Johnson. And again, I didn't have on my resume the word consumer packaging at all on my resume,
Hmm.
right? But I had these transferable skills. That's why they're so very critical. So I spearheaded the diversity management initiatives for the consumer business sector. And what that incorporated was 250 of our brands, the
Wow.
beloved brands that so many people know so well: Neutrogena, Tylenol, Bengay, all of these brands, Band-Aid, and there are 250 of these brands. And so I had the opportunity to work across multiple businesses for
Hmm.
the purposes of designing a strategy that was going to help meet their diversity needs. And we looked at it from a talent perspective. But guess what? As you learned in my background, it also provided a phenomenal opportunity for me to look at it from a business opportunity,
Yeah.
because those were 250 brands that were in market that we wanted to maximize market share. So it also allowed me to work with them on increasing market share across their businesses. And so it was advancing and planning and governance and structure, including policies, procedures, action plans. Those were all things that I did for the consumer sector. I also oversaw and managed the diversity management plans across the business functions and the franchises. And I enjoyed it immensely, immensely. And I also led efforts to increase organizational capacity, multiple dimensions of diversity, building capabilities to leverage value across the consumer sector. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, I can like feel your passion, and that's amazing to do something that you love and that you really find joy in. And then also I really love once again that you brought up the aspect of, the business aspect of DEI, the fact that of course it's great as a woman, person of color, any group that's maybe underrepresented to feel like these brands are appealing to you. And then also from the business aspect, as you mentioned, like being able to have more revenue come in from these groups that are now more inclusive and buying the products and
Absolutely.
the brands and increasing market share. So it's a win-win. I just love that
Absolutely.
those points all kind of go together and
Thank you.
synchronize.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And then, as head of DEI multicultural marketing at J&J, I read that you implemented and launched a Band-Aid brand accommodating Black and brown skin tones. Tell me more about that initiative. Was it difficult to undertake? What drove you? I think I know what drove you to do that
Yeah.
initiative.
Yes. So you know what it was? First of all, it was it wasn't a difficult process, because at Johnson and Johnson, and you have this big consumer sector, You have these 250 brands. So you always have that eye on innovation. And so it was a fabulous opportunity for me to be a part of. But in my role, I initiated strategies that were going to influence how the market is changing and create those transformational business and organizational shifts. And I did this, and I had the opportunity to execute and design a $600 million consumer strategy to
Wow.
address those market changes, those changing demographics that started in the year 2000. So through this strategy, one of the products that I launched and brought into market was the Band-Aid, Our Tone, the flexible fabric adhesive bandages into the marketplace. And I know for myself, this was personal. And the reason why it was so personal, and that is, you might think it's silly, but when I broke a nail, I didn't want to put a pink Band-Aid on my finger.
Yes.
I wanted a Band-Aid that matched my skin tone. And so I also, doing my research, I also found that I wasn't alone in this feeling, that there were lots of brown people that felt just like I felt. Black and brown skin tones were really, really important. So it wasn't difficult to get the buy-in from the consumer. They were asking for it. All
Mm.
right. It made sense to them. So, and also when the product was ready to launch, the retailers wanted to get this on their shelves even ahead of the marketing strategy launch.
Wow.
And so, as I mentioned earlier, understanding the dynamics of the changing customer base, as well as their needs, and having a Band-Aid that matched their skin tone was wanted and very much needed in the marketplace.
100%. And you're absolutely right. I'm really glad that you led and implemented that type of initiative because it is a need. I am being having a former slash here and there life and the pageant and modeling world. I did pageants some years ago. And even just with getting ready for changing different outfits and having like nude undergarments. It's like, well, nude for whom? Because
Exactly.
right, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. So
Exactly. I didn't want everyone to know I had a boo-boo.
right. 100%, 100%.
Right.
So that's definitely is, a great need. So I'm really glad that you addressed that and pushed that through at J&J. So good
Yes.
work, good work.
Excellent. Okay.
And we discussed earlier the roles you hired for while at Amex. Did you
Mhm.
hire for similar roles while at J&J?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. I was always looking for talent and that were subject matter experts. All
Yeah.
right. Again, you didn't have to be immersed in a particular topic, but you needed to be a subject matter expert in some way, shape, or form in or outside of the industry. And so again, what was critically important was I always looked for those transferable skills, transferable skills, transferable skills, transferable skills. And that was just critical for me. But the other thing that was just as critical that I mentioned earlier was I was looking for strong communication skills.
Mm.
And I was also always looking for, that I didn't previously mention, is an eye on innovation. I want people that are comfortable living and breathing in white space. That's what I want people to be comfortable doing. And so it was always what I factored into all of my listening. And as I was interviewing people, can they get the business to the next level? How do they think about innovation? How do they think about, how creative are they? How do they think about creativity? And so those were all things that I was always looking for.
Great. I think innovation nowadays is so key across different industries, especially with AI and different advances. And so it's like key.
Absolutely.
It's so
Absolutely.
key. It's so
Can't
key.
be afraid of it. Can't run from
Yes, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so what are some questions that you might have asked the candidate during an interview?
it. So when I would interview a candidate, I would always probe for how they solved problems.
Hmm.
How they solved problems. But I was also interested in how they collaborated with others to solve these problems, right?
Yes.
In addition to that, I wanted to know how they pivoted from one job experience to another. Again, someone similar to myself. How do you go from financial industries to now heading up in a function in a pharmaceutical company? So
Yeah.
I was always interested in how people pivoted, because and what that says to me is how comfortable they are with change. Change is inevitable. So how comfortable are you with that? And lastly, I was always interested in how they thought about innovation. That was just a staple for me.
Yes. And those kind of go together, change, innovation, moving forward, all very important things. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And what would you say are pros and cons pertaining to what an applicant should or shouldn't include on his or her resume?
Yes, yes. So this is a great question. Great question. So first of all, and I've seen so many
I'm
resumes.
sure.
Oh my God. If we're hiring for one position, there could be 1,000 resumes that came in.
Wow.
And I was always someone that, even though I had an HR colleague that would do the screening, I was always a hiring manager that wanted to see all of the resumes. Not
Hmm.
the 500 resumes, but I want them to see the first screening. And because I wanted to see what I didn't know. And because of how I looked at things and because of my questions and how I thought about interviews, there could be things that my HR leader may not pick up that I would see that were of value. So, well-structured resume that clearly highlights your most attractive skills and experience. Well-structured resume. And let me say this, I'm a flawed human being. And one of the things that I never accept, or have ever interviewed or hired a person is if there's a typo.
Mm.
I will never interview someone that had a typo on a resume. I will not, because I think you have every opportunity to make sure that this resume is as perfectly representative of you. So why give me something that has a typo? So
Absolutely.
your resume also needs to display those benefits you want to offer to the company you're going to hopefully work at. And you need to grab the attention of those hiring managers. You really do. And here's the most important thing for me. One resume does not fit all jobs that you're
Thank
going after.
you.
It does not. And so many people will use one resume or two resumes for 10 different jobs that they're applying for because they're tired. They don't want to have to go in and change the resume. It's tedious, it's cumbersome. Every single job that you apply for, you need a different resume,
Yes.
a different resume. Match your resume to the position you are seeking. Okay? You know what the job description, for the most part, what they're looking for. You match that. You match your skills to that. And the other thing is make sure that you have measurable actions that
Yes.
you took to achieve your goals. Make sure that you talk about, I exceeded this particular by 150%, by 300%, whatever they are, because people want to see your success. So that's what I would say in terms of things that would be value add. When I think about the cons, think about it this way. Without a job to tie your skills to, your resume lacks meaning and context. That's why it's so important to match your resume to the job,
Yeah.
right? Because keep in mind, I mentioned that a recruiter could get 500, 1,000 resumes. And if a recruiter has to work too hard to figure out what your worth is, you're not going to get that call for the interview.
Exactly.
So that would be my advice in terms of pros and cons for your resume.
That is great advice. I agree across the board. Of course, this is a topic I could talk about for God knows how long.
Exactly.
Long enough to
Exactly.
bore everyone. But no, I
Exactly.
really agree with all of those points. And definitely two of those that I think people should imprints in their brain or what you said about having measurable results, like achievement based. I call it achievement based resumes. Don't just focus on what you did, but like you said, delivered 150% of XYZ, or just very quantifiable results, if able, or results that show impact, not just saying responsible for, I did these day-to-day
Exactly.
things. So that's
Exactly.
super important. And then also what you mentioned as well is really targeting each resume towards the job. It's not that the resume may be extremely different for each role, but having different versions
Exactly.
that will apply certain keywords, phrases, to really match the applicant's skills with what as you mentioned, what the job posting is looking for. That's super important. And then also nowadays there's applicant tracking systems, which I'm positive companies like J&J and American Express utilize as well, along with hiring managers that really screen through those resumes and are literally looking for these keywords and phrases in the job description to match with the
Absolutely.
resume. Otherwise, the applicant's resume will likely be rejected if a certain amount of
Absolutely.
keywords and phrases aren't met. On average, 75% of applicant resumes are rejected by the ATS across industries. 75%, that's a
I
big
know.
number. So just
Exactly.
imagine as applicants and job seekers that are listening, just by implementing the right keywords and being discerning and kind of filtering through what's most important to put on your resume is it's going to make or break whether your resume even gets into the hands of someone
Exactly.
like Donna or other hiring
Exactly.
managers. So anyway,
Exactly.
I could talk on this for forever, but I'm really glad.
Exactly. Exactly. And the only thing that I'll add is
Yes.
that make it easy for that hiring manager or that recruiter in particular to push that your resume onto that hiring manager. So it's on the top of the pile. And so that they understand all of the reasons why you have to get in front of this hiring manager. So make it easy for them. Make
Yes.
it easy for them. Make sure that it matches. Make sure that you have those measurable goals. Make sure that all of that is in there, and keep it to a couple of pages. No one's going to read a 5-page resume.
No.
So no one's going to do it. And I know you're fabulous, and maybe your mom will read it, but no, they're not going to read it. And so I just wanted to add those as well.
Yes, really great tips. Really great tips. I love it. Love it. Great. And you have achieved much success and well-deserved recognition throughout your career. Some might say that your strides necessarily haven't been easy to make as a woman and person of color. So, do you feel that there exists a glass ceiling for women and minorities in the corporate workplace?
So, that's a great question. And I thought about this question, and I thought about this question a lot. But I have to be true to myself. I have to be totally honest. I have not. I have
Good.
not. I have always portrayed myself as an extremely hard worker. All right. Strong integrity, strong commitment to being the best at whatever it is that I'm doing. All right. Whatever I'm tasked with doing. And every role that I have ever applied for, I have been fortunate to get, whether it was an existing role or roles that I created based on the needs of the company. I do believe absolutely that it exists, but I would also say that largely why I may not have experienced that is because of my sponsors, the
Mm.
sponsors that I had in my career. And these were people that were speaking up for me and on my behalf when I was not sitting in that room. And so I have to give a lot of the credit to my sponsors to make sure that people knew who I was and knew what I had to offer. The work was mine. I had to hit the ball out the park, but I will give credit to them to say that they were instrumental in making sure that people knew who Donna was.
That's
But
great.
it
I
does
think
exist. It does exist.
yes. I think that's a really important point that you bring up too. Having a sponsor, no matter what background, of course, whether minority, non-minority, woman, man, of course, I'm sure it helped even more being a woman and person of color, but for anyone, how would you even advise one to go about finding a sponsor, or is it something that just kind of happens, or is there due diligence on the part of the person who is seeking a sponsor?
It's I get asked that question a lot. Network, 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 network,
Mm.
right? And I know that you want to think people might be thinking, "Oh my God, it's one more thing I have to do." Yes, it is. And it's critical. It's critical. It's important for people to know what your aspirations are. It's important for people to know where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. It's important for people to know what you have aspirations to do next. Because as they're having conversations, they can keep you top of mind and say, Leslie, I know you're looking for a strong marketing person. I have a person that you might want to take a look at. So you want to make sure that you're networking and you're connecting. And sponsors are people that you are there, that you share the good, and the good with. Mentors, you tend to share the good, the bad, and the ugly with. But sponsors are
Mm.
people you share the good, and the good with. And then what you also expect with them is this relationship is that a sponsor's job is to get you to that next level. They use their expertise, they use their reputation, they use their seniority, they use their executive leveling to get you to the next level by speaking up on your behalf. And that's what a sponsor's job is to help you move to your next role.
That's great. And when you were mentioning too that with the sponsor, the good, and the good, and the mentor, maybe the good, bad, and ugly, that also caused me, I thank you for mentioning that because some may not even think about the difference. So as you mentioned, the sponsors want to like elevate and push one through. What are the essential differences between a sponsor and a mentor for
So a
those who
mentor,
don't know?
yes, absolutely. So a mentor is someone that you have a conversation with and you want to try to level set. You want to get their perspective on the work that you're doing. It may be your manager that you have within in your work environment. And you want to get feedback to make sure that the direction that you're going for your particular work and the goals that you have are moving in the right direction. So you're looking for an exchange of feedback. And you want to also have a relationship with them where you can share what's on your mind from the standpoint of work. And then you allow that relationship and you cultivate that relationship to grow. But sponsors are people that have these strong reputation. And I'm not going to say that a sponsor can't be a mentor, but in many cases, they are not because they are very different roles. And so what the sponsor wants to do is the sponsor wants to utilize their intellectual property on your behalf. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. And so allow them to do that. Get to know them. Get to have conversations with them. Spend time talking about what they have been doing for a living, talking about how they can support you. Share with them what your aspirations are, and ask them to help you and open the door to other things that you'd like to do. When I was interested in pivoting from financial services into global diversity, I talked to all of my sponsors. Some of them thought I had lost my mind. They thought I had lost my mind. He said, Donna, you're a banker, be a banker. And I said, I don't define myself by that. I want to do what I want to do. And then I had sponsors that said, you can do anything you set your mind to. Just go out and do it. Let me make a couple of phone calls and make sure that they get your resume in front of them. That's what sponsors are here to do.
Yes. Thank you for also describing that. I kind of in my head, of course, always going back to the talent, not necessarily talent in terms of employee, but talent in terms of literal talent. Industry, a mentor can kind of be seen as someone like a talent coach, someone that's developing
Right.
the skills and can apply to literal talent like employee. Someone developing maybe, whereas the sponsor is more of the talent manager or PR, which is really out there to promote that person throughout their career. So
Right.
yes, I love my brain's always going back to the talent stuff, but I think that's great that you describe that, and that it's important, likely, for people to have both throughout their career.
Absolutely.
But I think the importance of a sponsor is really key to helping one to elevate and to push themselves throughout the corporate world and just the professional world in general, whether someone's an entrepreneur or a corporate individual, but especially in the corporate world for sure too. So.
Absolutely. And I would also add that every day, 20% of your time should be spent on networking.
Yes.
Every single day. 20% of your time should be spent on networking. Not having lunch with the same people, getting to know people, having coffee with different people, just connecting with people to get to know them and how you can work together to support each other.
Yes.
It's like
I
your own
love that.
personal PR agency.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a huge proponent of networking. Obviously, you are as well. People that know me are like, "Who are you meeting today?" But it's just it's just part of my natural personality, to be honest. But obviously, as well as in the work world and professional world, it just is such a value add because you never know. And to me, it makes things interesting by getting other people's perspectives, just
Absolutely.
right, branching out. So I think that's so important that you're mentioning that to people too.
Yes.
Network doesn't have to feel like this, like, I gotta go out. I mean, I understand certain people may
Mm-hmm.
not consider
Mm-hmm.
themselves extroverted or whatnot, but if you
Mm-hmm.
see it as an opportunity, extroverted or introverted, to really get different perspectives and expand your base. It doesn't have to be this dreary thing. I think some people they dread it,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so
Mm-hmm.
many benefits, and it doesn't have to be a tit for tat. It's just really getting to know individuals. You never know. Just have being creative, like you talk about change and innovation, having new ideas. I love conversations with new people, such as yourself and others,
Mm-hmm.
because oftentimes you never know what different perspective you're going to gain that can open your mind. So anyway,
Yes,
I think it's great.
absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I love it,
Yes.
love it, love it.
Absolutely. Love that. Love that. And you have a book out that recently launched, Behind the
Yes,
Glass Doors, The Unwritten
yes,
Rules for Success and Fulfillment. For our
yes.
audience to be filled in, what is the book about?
So, this is a book that I have wanted to write for 39 years. That
Wow.
I kept notes in a file on, oh, when I write my book, I'm going to say this. Oh, when I write my book, I'm going to say that. And so it's something that I was always passionate about. And I wanted to write it after I retired because I wanted to be, when you're working for large companies, the large companies would want to see the manuscript. I didn't want constraints, not saying that there would be, but I didn't want any constraints on how I said what I wanted to say. Or do you want to say it that way? Yes, I do. And so I wanted the freedom to have it be in my own words. So when you think about my book, think about it from this standpoint. 39 years in corporate America, I've seen a lot, I've experienced a lot, and everyone is excited to be inside. When you think of those glass towers, that's the cover on my book is a glass tower because everybody wants to, in corporate America, everybody wants to be in the glass tower, in the corner office. But just what are you in for?
Hmm.
Whether it's your first day, whether it's your first promotion, or your first all hands call in the C suite, the unknowns behind the glass doors can make or break you. They can thrill you and they can threaten your position. They can secure you or they can disrupt your life if you
Yes.
don't come prepared to meet those new challenges. And so this was the moment when realizing and understanding what you don't know becomes critical to your success. And so in my book, I highlight 10 rules for success to how to navigate corporate America that they don't tell you in fulfillment. And the book, you can find the book, it's located on Amazon as well as a number of different retailers worldwide.
Yes. By the way, I have it right here. And I didn't even officially tell you, or I guess now I officially tell you that I read the book. I absolutely loved the book. I thought it was very valuable and just very value add advice. And even for someone like myself who isn't in the traditional corporate world, I work with a lot of people in the corporate world, but I learned so much from it. I still feel it's a value add even for an entrepreneur, and of course those
Yeah.
for those in the corporate world. So I absolutely love it. I would highly recommend it. Donna
Yeah.
is
Thank
not
you.
paying me to promote this book, just to put it out there. I just really love it, and so I would advise this for any and all job seekers at any point of their career, and especially those in the corporate world looking to advance. Just very valuable advice. So I absolutely loved it. I know you were
Yes.
curious about my feedback, but now I can tell
Thank
you.
Oh, thank you.
So
My
really great.
girlfriend who is does makeup, and she does the what is the
Oh, like
wardrobe,
stylist?
the wardrobe. She's a stylist.
Yes.
She would hate that I didn't say that
No
right,
worries.
but she's a stylist, and she works with all of these different stars. And she
Oh,
read the book, and she said, "Donna, this book is for everybody. This book is
yes.
for everyone." And she said,
Yes.
"I learned so much from the book." And she pulled out the book, and she had all of these little note tabs, and she said, "I love this book. It's a quick read." She said, "I did it in a
Yes.
couple of hours." She said, "I loved it. I loved it. It's a really great book, and I've learned so many things from the book."
Yeah.
So yes, she being a stylist to the stars, she got a lot out of the book as well.
Absolutely. I think as she said, and as I mentioned too, and you're alluding to, it's like any walk of life, you of course, corporate world 100%, but then other areas as well. You just learn things that can apply towards all areas of life, no matter what the person's working background is.
Yes,
So I
yes.
love it. I think it's amazing. Everyone should have this book.
Thank you, thank
I feel like
you.
Oprah, and you get a book, and you
You get one, and you get one. Thank you,
Exactly.
thank
So
you, thank you,
I very enjoyable read. Love that. Love
thank
that.
you.
And I know you've given some really great advice to job seekers, including, of course, having a sponsor. Is there any other advice or insight you'd like to provide to job seekers or those looking to advance in the corporate world?
Though sponsorship is critical, absolutely. Have at least 7 or 8 sponsors in your life at all times
Yeah.
because sponsors come and go. Have at least 7 or 8, 6 or 7 mentors in your life. Have advocates and peers and colleagues. This makes up your board of directors, I'll call them. And I will say for me personally, I have standing room only in my bunker. So it's everybody that I can fit in there that's going to support the work that I'm doing is in there. And so I would say that that's first and foremost, that's really, really critical. Make that investment into yourself and those relationships. The other thing that I would say is spend a decent amount of time when you're in roles, especially if you're new to roles, listening and observing.
Hmm.
Listening and observing. This is going to be critical because this is going to educate you in terms of the rules for engagement. So, really take a minute and listen and observe. It'll also teach you how people present, how people dress, how people communicate. And this is all going to set you up for your success. I always spend a fair amount of time listening and observing. And no matter what role I was in, because you're always constantly meeting and talking to new people, if you don't know these people in particular, listen and observe. And so it's really, really important. And then be committed to yourself. Be committed to yourself. Don't let anyone tell you what your next move should be. Don't let people tell you that you should stay in a particular industry because you're good in that industry. You define what you want your success to look like. You define what you want to do in your career. You make those decisions. And don't allow any naysayers into your life to burn out those candles that you've lit for yourself. So you make sure that you keep people that are surrounding you that are going to support you in your vision and your goals for yourself. So that would be the advice that I would give you.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Yes, I second that. I am 100%. Really great
Yes.
advice.
Yes.
Wonderful
Thank you.
advice. And Unfortunately, that concludes all of the questions I have. I have so enjoyed having you on today. You've really offered, Donna, value add advice to our job seekers. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And again, thank you so much for being my guest today. And
Thank
thank you, of course, to all of our listeners and watchers. And stay tuned for another episode of Ask the Hiring Manager. Bye,
thank you.
everyone. Thank
Thank you. Bye,
you.
everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to Ask the Hiring Manager. I'm Leslie Hunter, president of Resume Makeover. I've been helping job seekers for nearly a decade to acquire their dream jobs and achieve the income they desire, from entry-level applicants to C-suite executives and everyone in between. From your resume to your cover letter, LinkedIn profile, bio, or website content, I'm here for you. And now I'm going to open the door and interview some of the top hiring managers so that you can have the insight that you need to book the jobs that you want. Welcome to Ask the Hiring Manager.